The moment of shock, hook. Lena's hands trembled as she gripped the thick envelope, her heartbeat pounding so hard it echoed in her ears. She stood in the grand office, polished mahogany floors, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a skyline so foreign to her small-town existence that it felt like a dream. Except this was no dream. Inside the envelope was the truth. Daniel's name was printed in bold letters on a stack of legal documents, his signature scrawled neatly beneath figures that made her breath hitch. She stared at the number. $12.8 billion. Her husband, the man she married out of desperation, the one who walked around in second-hand jeans and worked a job fixing cars, was worth more money than she could even comprehend. She had struggled to afford diapers for her son. She had begged for extra shifts at the diner to buy his medication. All while Daniel, her husband, had been living with a secret this massive. A weight dropped into her chest. Lena felt sick. How had she been so blind? And why had he lied? A small-town struggle, background. Just 6 months earlier, Lena had been standing behind the counter of Maggie's diner, wiping down sticky tables and counting her tips with quiet desperation. Her life was simple, but not by choice. She had grown up in the town of Willow Springs, a place where everyone knew everyone, where secrets were rare, and where dreams of getting out were even rarer. Lena had once been a girl full of big dreams, but life had quickly hardened her. At 22, she had a 3-year-old son, Avon, who had been diagnosed with a rare autoimmune disease. Medical bills had buried her in debt. Her ex, the father of her child, had walked out before Avon's first birthday, leaving her to fight alone. She worked 2 jobs, barely sleeping 4 hours a night, surviving on coffee and sheer willpower. But no matter how hard she worked, it was never enough. Every dollar she made was swallowed by hospital visits, medications, and late rent notices. And then, on one particularly hopeless night, Daniel had walked into her life. Meeting Daniel, the regular guy. Lena remembered the night vividly. The diner had been nearly empty, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Daniel had walked in, dressed in worn jeans and a faded flannel, looking like any other mechanic, factory worker, or trucker passing through town. She had served him a cup of coffee, expecting nothing. But Daniel was different. He hadn't stared at his phone, like most customers. He had looked at her, really looked, like he could see the exhaustion she tried so hard to hide. "You look like you need a break," he had said. Lena had scoffed. Breaks cost money. To her surprise, he hadn't laughed. He had just nodded like he understood. They talked that night. And then every night after that. Daniel never pushed her for details, but he listened when she finally broke down and told him about Avon's condition, about the weight of being a single mom, about the fear that one day she'd wake up and not have enough to keep her son alive. And Daniel had simply said, "You shouldn't have to do this alone." An unconventional proposal. Their relationship hadn't been a fairy tale. There had been no grand romance, no whirlwind courtship. Instead, one night, when Avon had spiked another fever and Lena had been crying over another medical bill, Daniel had quietly said, "Marry me." She had laughed bitterly. "Daniel, I don't have time for jokes. I'm serious," he had said. "Avon needs insurance. You need help. And his voice had faltered. "I don't want you to go through this alone." Lena had stared at him, searching his face for an agenda. There was none. Daniel had always been steady, kind, and patient. But why would a man, who had no obligation to her, want to take on someone else's baggage? "I don't love you," she had said honestly. "I know," he had replied just as honestly. "But I care. And I want to help." It wasn't romantic. It wasn't ideal. But it was practical. And so, they got married. A courthouse wedding, a few signatures, and suddenly, she had a husband. And for 6 months, Daniel had been exactly what he promised: kind, supportive, reliable. Until today. Until she found out he wasn't who he claimed to be. The cracks in the lie. Looking back, the clues had been there. The way he never seemed stressed about money. The casual way he paid off medical bills without hesitation. The one time a stranger in a suit had called him "sir" in hushed tones before Daniel had quickly sent him away. But Lena had been too exhausted to question it. Now, standing in this luxurious penthouse, staring at numbers so high she couldn't comprehend them, it all made sense. Her husband wasn't a mechanic. Her husband wasn't an average man. Her husband was a billionaire. The truth comes crashing down. The sound of the office door opening snapped Lena back to the present. Daniel stepped inside, his expression unreadable. "I wanted to tell you," he said quietly. Lena turned to him, her chest tightening. "When?" He exhaled, raking a hand through his hair. "It was never supposed to matter. I walked away from all of this years ago. I didn't want it. I didn't want people looking at me differently because of money. But it does matter, Daniel." Lena's voice rose. "Do you know how many nights I lay awake worrying about how to buy Avon's medication? Do you know how many times I had to choose between groceries and hospital bills?" Daniel's jaw clenched. "I wasn't lying when I said I wanted to help. I just didn't want you to marry me for money." Lena let out a bitter laugh. "So instead, you let me believe you were just some broke guy helping out of pity?" Silence. And in that silence, Lena realized something terrifying. She wasn't just angry. She wasn't just hurt. She was scared. Because if Daniel had lied about this, what else had he lied about? The weight of a lie. Lena didn't remember walking out of the office. One moment, she was standing in front of Daniel, her body stiff with disbelief, her stomach in knots. The next, she was outside, surrounded by the buzz of the city, her breath sharp and shallow. Daniel's voice still echoed in her ears. "I didn't want you to marry me for money." She clenched her fists, trying to make sense of it all. Was this noble, or was it manipulative? Had she really married a good man who just wanted a normal life? Or had she fallen into a carefully crafted lie? Lena didn't know. What she did know was that she needed air. She walked blindly through the streets, the towering skyline pressing down on her. The scent of expensive coffee and fresh asphalt filled her nose, so different from the familiar smell of home. Home. Willow Springs. The small, quiet town where everyone knew her name. Where people struggled, but at least they struggled together. Where Daniel had been just a kind man in a flannel shirt, drinking coffee in a rundown diner. Had that Daniel ever been real? Back to reality, the town's whispers begin. 3 days later, Lena sat in her kitchen, back in Willow Springs, staring at the untouched cup of coffee in front of her. The rumors had already started. It had only taken one person, a friend of a friend who had seen her and Daniel in the city, to start talking. "Did you hear? Lena's husband is some big-shot billionaire. I knew there was something off about him. Think she married him for money?" The town had never cared about Daniel before. But now? Now they were curious. Lena could feel their eyes on her when she walked into the grocery store. She could see the small smirks when she stood in line at the pharmacy picking up Avon's medication. For the first time in her life, people weren't pitying her. Now, they were judging her. Daniel's apology and the first suspicion. That night, Daniel knocked on her door. She didn't answer at first. She wanted to let him stand outside in the cold, just to prove a point. But then she thought of Avon, sleeping peacefully in the next room. This wasn't just about her. So, she opened the door. Daniel looked rough, like he hadn't slept since she left. His usual calm demeanor was replaced by something else, regret. Lena, I don't want to hear it. She folded her arms. I don't want more excuses. He sighed. I didn't lie about how I feel about you. I didn't lie about wanting to help. But I should have told you the truth. Lena let out a hollow laugh. Yeah. You should have. He ran a hand through his hair. I didn't expect any of this. I thought I could walk away from that world. I never wanted it. Lena wanted to believe him. She really did. But something wasn't adding up. If he didn't want that life, why did people still seek him out? Why did he get that urgent phone call right before they left? And why had she seen a stranger in a suit slip an envelope under their door just that morning? Something was still being hidden from her. And she was going to find out what. A sudden change in fortune. The next morning, everything changed. Lena woke up to find an anonymous donation had been made to Avon's hospital account. $200,000. She nearly dropped the phone when she saw the number. She called the hospital, demanding answers. Who sent this? The receptionist hesitated. I don't know, Miss Lena. It was wired through a private foundation. Her stomach twisted. There was only one person who could have done this. Daniel. Confrontation and the first big clue. Lena stormed into Daniel's shop later that day. You paid off Avon's medical bills. Daniel set down his wrench, wiping his hands on a rag. I did. Why? He looked at her like the answer should have been obvious. Because I can. Because he's my son now, too. Lena's throat tightened. The gesture was kind, but it felt wrong. Because if he had the power to do this all along, why hadn't he done it sooner? What was he waiting for? And then she saw it. A white business card, tucked into his back pocket. Before Daniel could react, she snatched it. It had one name on it. James Calloway. Lena didn't know who that was. But something in Daniel's face, the flash of panic, the way his body stiffened, told her it was important. What is this? Daniel reached for it, but she stepped back. Lena. Tell me the truth, she demanded. Daniel hesitated. And that was all she needed to see. He was still lying to her. And she was going to find out why. The first twist, who is James Calloway? Lena did what anyone would do. She Googled the name. And what she found made her blood run cold. James Calloway wasn't just anyone. He was a corporate lawyer. But not just any lawyer, he was known for handling high-profile family disputes, secret inheritances, and billion-dollar estate cases. And there, on one of the articles, was a mention of the Hartwell family estate. Daniel's last name. Her entire world tilted. This wasn't just about money. This wasn't just about Daniel wanting a normal life. Something much bigger was happening. Something Daniel hadn't told her. And she was going to uncover it, whether he liked it or not. Secrets are never buried forever. Lena sat at her kitchen table, gripping her phone so tightly her fingers ached. The article on the screen glowed in the dim light, each word pressing deeper into her chest. James Calloway, corporate lawyer specializing in high-profile family disputes and billion-dollar estates. Clients include the Hartwell family estate. The Hartwell family. Daniel's family. Her husband had walked into her life as a humble mechanic, a man who seemed to have no past, no ties, no responsibilities, just a quiet existence in Willow Springs. But that was a lie. Lena's heart pounded as she clicked on another link, an old business article about Hartwell Enterprises, a global investment firm with holdings in real estate, tech startups, and international trade. At the bottom of the article was a family photo. Her breath caught. There was Daniel, clean-shaven, dressed in a tailored suit, standing next to an older man with piercing gray eyes. The caption read, Nathaniel Hartwell, founder of Hartwell Enterprises, with his son, Daniel Hartwell. Lena felt sick. Her husband wasn't just wealthy. He was one of the richest heirs in the country. And he had hidden it from her. She closed her eyes, trying to calm the storm inside her. She needed to confront him. The town begins to whisper. By the time Lena stepped outside the next morning, the whole town was buzzing. She could feel it before she even heard the words, the way conversations hushed when she passed, the lingering glances. The local grocery store, Murphy's Market, was the worst. She overheard two older women whispering near the produce section. Did you hear? Lena's husband is a billionaire. Who would have thought? I always knew there was something off about him. No one just shows up in a town like this. You think she knew all along? Married him for his money? Lena's stomach tightened. She turned sharply, making direct eye contact. I can hear you, you know. The women flushed, mumbling something about checking the dairy section before scurrying off. Lena's hands curled into fists. She had lived in this town her entire life. These were people she had grown up with, worked alongside. And now they looked at her like she was a gold digger. Daniel returns, but with more secrets. That night, Daniel knocked on the door. Lena let him in, crossing her arms as he stepped into the living room. His face was tired, the weight of his secret finally pressing down on him. I know who you are, she said before he could speak. Daniel sighed. I figured you'd find out. Lena tossed her phone onto the coffee table, the article still open. Your father was Nathaniel Hartwell. You're the heir to a multi-billion-dollar company. You could have bought this entire town 10 times over, and yet you let me think you were some broke mechanic. His jaw tightened. It was never about the money, Lena. She scoffed. Easy for you to say when you've never had to wonder how you'd pay for your kid's medication. Daniel's expression darkened. You think I don't know what it's like to lose something? Lena hesitated. There was something in his voice, a raw edge of pain. He sat down, running a hand through his hair. My father, he wasn't a good man, Lena. He didn't just build a company. He built an empire on control and manipulation. He expected me to follow in his footsteps, to become the next perfect Hartwell. Lena swallowed. So, you ran. I ran, he admitted. I left the money, the business, everything. I wanted a life where I wasn't just a name on a Forbes list. She should have felt sympathy. But all she felt was anger. Then why didn't you tell me, she demanded. Why let me suffer? You knew I was drowning in debt, Daniel. And you just watched? He flinched. I never wanted you to feel like you owed me anything. I needed to know you loved me for me. Lena let out a hollow laugh. Loved you? Daniel, I didn't even know you. Silence. And then, as if to make things worse, his phone buzzed. A name flashed across the screen. James Calloway. The unexpected invitation. Lena folded her arms. Answer it. Daniel hesitated before picking up the phone. Sir, it's urgent, Calloway's voice came through the speaker. You need to return to the estate immediately. Lena's breath hitched. Estate? Daniel's eyes flickered to her before he responded. I told you, I'm done with that world. It's not about business. It's family. You should see for yourself. Lena felt her pulse quicken. Something was happening. Something big. Daniel exhaled, rubbing his temples. Then he looked at her. Come with me. Lena blinked. What? If you want answers, he said, come with me. See it for yourself. She should have said no. She should have slammed the door and told him to leave her alone. But she had too many questions. And maybe, just maybe, she needed to see the truth with her own eyes. The grand arrival, a shocking welcome. 2 days later, Lena found herself sitting in the back of a black SUV, gripping the leather seat as they pulled up to the Hartwell estate. Her breath caught in her throat. The mansion was unlike anything she had ever seen. White stone, massive glass windows, towering columns, like something out of a movie. She had seen wealth before. But this? This was another world. The gates swung open, and a row of uniformed staff stood at attention. And then she saw him. An older man in a suit, standing on the grand steps, arms folded. He had Daniel's sharp jawline. But his eyes were cold. Lena knew instantly, this was his father's legacy. And just like that, she realized, Daniel had never truly escaped. Because some names? Some legacies? They never really let you go. A world she didn't belong in. Lena stepped out of the black SUV, her breath shallow as she took in the sheer grandeur of the Hartwell estate. The air smelled different here, like freshly cut grass, old money, and power. The mansion loomed over her like a palace, all gleaming white stone, grand archways, and windows so large they reflected the world like mirrors. Everything about this place screamed wealth beyond imagination. But for Lena, it felt like a trap. Her hands trembled at her sides as she followed Daniel up the grand steps, the weight of a dozen stairs pressing on her. She wasn't welcome here. And she knew it. Meeting the other Hartwells. At the top of the steps stood a man, tall, imposing, and utterly unreadable. His salt and pepper hair was neatly combed back, his tailored navy suit sharper than any blade. Lena knew exactly who he was. William Hartwell. Daniel's older brother. Unlike Daniel, William carried himself with the unyielding arrogance of someone born into power. His cold blue eyes flicked over her once, assessing her like a piece of furniture before settling on Daniel. You took your time. Daniel's jaw clenched. I wasn't exactly in a rush to come back. William smirked. Clearly. His gaze flicked toward Lena again. And you brought company. Lena felt the subtle sting in his tone. He didn't say her name. Didn't ask who she was. To him, she was irrelevant. Daniel's hand brushed hers, a silent gesture of reassurance. Lena is my wife. The words hung in the air like a loaded gun. For a second, the only sound was the wind rustling the immaculate hedges lining the driveway. Then William let out a slow, amused chuckle. Oh, Daniel. He shook his head. You always did love making reckless decisions. Lena stiffened. Reckless. Like she was some kind of mistake. Daniel squared his shoulders. Where's Calloway? William's smirk faded. Inside. And just like that, the game had changed. Lena didn't know who James Calloway really was. But whatever this meeting was about, it wasn't just a simple family reunion. The hidden truth about Daniel's past. They were led through the mansion's grand hallways, marble floors stretching endlessly beneath chandeliers that looked like they cost more than Lena's entire hometown. She had been in rich people's homes before, but this wasn't just wealth. This was power. Everything was pristine, cold, and impersonal, a house built for reputation, not warmth. As they entered a dimly lit study, a man stood from a leather chair by the fireplace. James Calloway. His silver-rimmed glasses glinted in the low light, his sharp suit impeccable. Daniel. It's been a long time. Daniel didn't sit. Cut to the chase, Calloway. The lawyer nodded, unbuttoning his jacket. I'll be blunt. Your father's will has been unsealed. Lena's breath caught. Daniel went still. I don't care. Calloway ignored the dismissal. You should. Your father left you a controlling stake in Hartwell Enterprises. Lena's heart skipped a beat. Daniel cursed under his breath, running a hand over his face. No. I walked away. I don't want it. Calloway adjusted his glasses. You don't have a choice. Silence. Daniel's hands clenched into fists. William runs the company. Always has. Calloway's expression darkened. Not anymore. Daniel frowned. What do you mean? William, who had been silent until now, exhaled sharply. Father stripped me of my executive power before he died. Lena's eyes widened. She turned to Daniel, who looked genuinely stunned. Why? William's face hardened. Because I wasn't his perfect heir either. Lena frowned. Then why give it to Daniel? Calloway hesitated. Because he knew Daniel was the only one who would never want it. The power play. Lena's head spun. This wasn't just a will reading. This was a power struggle. Nathaniel Hartwell had played one final game before he died, forcing his sons against each other. Daniel, the son who ran away from wealth, had been given ultimate control. And William? Left powerless. Lena saw it now, the tension, the sharp edge in William's voice. He didn't hate Daniel. He hated what Daniel represented. A brother who had rejected wealth and power, only to have it handed to him anyway. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. I don't want it. I don't want anything from him. Calloway's voice was calm. Then sign it away. Daniel paused. Give it to William, Calloway continued. If you truly don't want it, transfer the shares. Walk away, for good. Lena watched Daniel's jaw tighten. This was exactly what he wanted, right? To be free of his family's expectations? So why did he hesitate? Lena's gut twisted. Because she knew. Somewhere deep down, Daniel had unfinished business here. And walking away wasn't going to be as simple as signing a piece of paper. The silent war. Later that night, as they sat in a guest room too luxurious to feel real, Lena finally spoke. What are you going to do? Daniel sat on the edge of the bed, staring at his hands. I should sign it over. Lena swallowed. Then why haven't you? His jaw clenched. And suddenly, she saw it. The doubt. The unresolved anger. The weight of a past he had never truly escaped. I don't know. His voice was low. Lena exhaled. If you don't want it, walk away. But if part of you thinks. Daniel's phone buzzed, cutting her off. He looked down at the screen. His face went pale. Lena frowned. What is it? Daniel slowly turned the screen toward her. A message from an unknown number. If you love your wife, you'll leave before it's too late. Lena's blood ran cold. She looked up at Daniel. What the hell is going on? A threat that changes everything. The phone screen glowed in the dimly lit bedroom, but the words felt like they were burned into Lena's brain. If you love your wife, you'll leave before it's too late. She felt the room tilt, the weight of those words pressing into her chest. Daniel's hands were clenched around the phone, his jaw tight. His entire body had gone rigid. Lena swallowed hard. Who sent this? Daniel didn't answer right away. His eyes stayed locked on the message, but his silence told her everything. He knew. Or at least, he had a damn good idea. Lena's stomach twisted. Daniel, what's happening? Who did we just walk into a fight with? Finally, he exhaled sharply and ran a hand through his hair. This isn't just about the will, Lena. My father, he left behind more than just money. A chill crawled down her spine. Like what? He hesitated. Then, quietly, he said, secrets. The Hartwell legacy, a family divided. Lena had expected a world of luxury and old money politics when they came to the estate. But this? This was something else entirely. The next morning, she and Daniel were summoned to the Hartwell boardroom. It wasn't just William and James Calloway waiting for them this time. There were at least 6 other people, all dressed in impeccably tailored suits, all stiff and unreadable. Lena felt like she was stepping into a war zone. A woman with icy blonde hair and sharp features leaned forward. "Daniel. I assume you've had time to think." Daniel's jaw flexed. "I have." William smirked from across the table, as if he already knew the answer. "Good. Let's make it official then, sign it over, walk away, and we can all pretend you never came back." Daniel didn't move. Lena's pulse quickened. He was hesitating again. That was not what William expected. The room fell into tense silence. Then Daniel spoke. "What exactly am I walking away from?" Lena stiffened. Oh, God. She had a feeling this wasn't just about stubbornness anymore. It was about the truth. A hidden empire, more than just money. Calloway adjusted his glasses, his face unreadable. "Your father had, off-the-books dealings. Contracts, offshore accounts. If you take control, you inherit it all." Lena's stomach dropped. This wasn't just about a billionaire empire. It was about something deeper. Something dangerous. William scoffed. "There's nothing to inherit except a damn mess." But Lena saw it, the way his fingers tapped against the table, the flicker of unease in his gaze. He was lying. Daniel leaned back, watching his brother carefully. "Then why do you want it so badly?" That was it. The air in the room shifted. Everyone stilled. William's mask cracked, just for a second. Then, before he could answer, the doors burst open. A security guard rushed in, his face pale. "Sir, we have a problem." Lena's breath caught as the guard held out another phone. A message glowed on the screen. "Tell Daniel to leave. Final warning." Her hands went cold. This wasn't about money. This was about power, control, and something far more dangerous than she had ever imagined. The town's reaction: Lena faces the fallout. Lena and Daniel left the meeting in silence. The estate felt bigger now, more suffocating. Lena's heart was hammering, but the moment they stepped outside, Daniel grabbed her hand. "We're leaving." She nodded. She didn't care about the inheritance. She didn't care about the secrets. She just wanted out. But leaving the estate was one thing. Leaving the town's judgment behind? That was another. By the time they returned to Willow Springs, the town had already turned against her. She felt it immediately. The way people whispered when she walked past. The way they avoided eye contact. In the grocery store, an older woman scoffed loudly when Lena reached for a loaf of bread. "Figures," she muttered. "Rich girls shopping with us common folk now." Lena's cheeks burned. "I'm not rich." The woman snorted. "Tell that to your billionaire husband." A betrayal from within. The worst part? It wasn't just strangers. It was people Lena had once trusted. Her boss at the diner suddenly cut her shifts. Avon's daycare provider made an offhand comment about how maybe they should donate that spot to someone who actually needed it. And then, one afternoon, she got a call from the bank. Her landlord was raising the rent by double. Lena hung up the phone, her hands shaking with anger. She had spent years struggling in this town. And now? Now that they thought she had money, they wanted to push her out. She clenched her fists. She wasn't going to let them win. The final warning: someone wants them gone. That night, Lena was sitting in the kitchen, sipping on tea, when she heard a knock on the door. Daniel had been in the shower, so she got up, unlocking the door without thinking. She froze. A small white envelope sat on the doorstep. She swallowed hard and bent down, fingers trembling as she picked it up. Her breath caught as she read the words scrawled in black ink. "Get out of town, Lena. This isn't your fight." Her heart stopped. This wasn't about Daniel anymore. Someone was coming for her. The final warning, a line crossed. Lena's fingers trembled as she held the envelope. The words written in black ink were searing into her brain. "Get out of town, Lena. This isn't your fight." For a moment, all she could hear was the pounding of her own heartbeat. This wasn't some town gossip. This wasn't about jealous neighbors or bitter whispers behind her back. This was a threat. And whoever had left this note knew exactly where she lived. A chill crawled up her spine. She turned sharply, eyes scanning the darkness outside her front door. The street was empty. But that didn't mean she wasn't being watched. Slowly, she closed the door, locking it twice before stepping back. She needed to tell Daniel. Now. A breaking point, the confrontation. By the time Daniel stepped out of the bathroom, his hair damp and a towel around his shoulders, Lena had already placed the note on the kitchen counter. He frowned when he saw her pale face. "Lena?" She slid the envelope toward him. "Read it." Daniel's expression darkened as his eyes moved over the words. His grip on the paper tightened until his knuckles turned white. "That's it." His voice was low, deadly calm. "We're leaving." Lena's heart skipped a beat. "Leaving?" Daniel met her gaze, his blue eyes burning with something fierce. "Yes. This isn't just about the inheritance anymore, Lena. Someone is trying to push us out. And I won't wait around for them to do something worse." Lena swallowed hard. She wanted to argue. Wanted to fight for her life here. But deep down, she knew, this wasn't a battle they could win. The town had turned on her. And now? Now, someone was trying to scare her into running. Maybe that was exactly what they needed to do. The town's true colors. The next morning, Lena stepped out onto the porch, a cup of coffee in her hands. Across the street, two neighbors, women she had known her entire life, were standing by a mailbox, speaking in hushed voices. When they saw her, they didn't wave. They just stared. The way they had been doing for weeks. Lena's stomach twisted. Her entire life, she had been part of this town. Worked at its diner. Raised her son here. Struggled, just like everyone else. But the moment they thought she had money, they had turned their backs on her. And now? Now, she was just a stranger in her own home. Lena took a deep breath. Daniel was right. They had to leave. The truth about Hartwell Enterprises. That afternoon, Daniel made the call to James Calloway. "Draw up the papers. I'm signing everything over to William." Lena watched him from across the kitchen, a mix of relief and worry in her chest. Signing away the inheritance meant walking away from power, from money, from all the things people fought their whole lives for. But for Daniel? It meant freedom. Calloway hesitated. "You're sure about this?" Daniel's grip on the phone tightened. "I've never been more sure." A beat of silence. Then, Calloway sighed. "Understood. I'll handle it." Lena exhaled. It was over. Or so she thought. A final betrayal, a shocking twist. The next morning, they packed their bags. Lena wasn't sure where they were going yet. But all she knew was it wasn't here. Then, just as they were about to leave, Daniel's phone rang. He answered, and within seconds, his entire expression changed. Lena froze. "What is it?" Daniel's jaw tightened. Calloway. He just sent me the final documents. Lena frowned. Okay. Daniel swallowed. William already signed them. Lena hesitated. So? Isn't that a good thing? Daniel exhaled. No, Lena. It's not. His voice was low, tense. Because William didn't just take control of the company. He moved all of our assets under his name. Lena blinked. What? Daniel's lips pressed into a tight line. He cut us off, Lena. We have nothing. Her stomach dropped. William had played them. And now? They weren't just leaving town. They were starting over with nothing. A new beginning, but on their own terms. That evening, they drove out of Willow Springs, Avon sleeping peacefully in the back seat. The town's lights faded behind them, and with it, the life Lena had known. Daniel's hands gripped the wheel, his jaw tense. Lena reached over, lacing her fingers with his. Are you okay? She asked softly. Daniel exhaled. I lost everything. Lena smiled. No, you didn't. He turned to look at her. She squeezed his hand. You still have us. A slow smile tugged at Daniel's lips. And for the first time in weeks, Lena felt free. Because maybe they didn't have the money, the power, or the fancy last name. But they had each other. And that? That was more valuable than anything Hartwell Enterprises could ever offer. Final reflection, a thought-provoking question. As they drove toward an uncertain future, Lena thought about everything they had lost, and everything they had gained. She had spent years believing that money was the answer. That wealth would solve her problems. But in the end? It had only revealed the truth about people. Some were driven by greed. Some by fear. But the ones who truly mattered? They stood by you, even when everything else fell apart. Lena turned to Daniel, her voice soft. If you could go back, would you still walk away from the money? Daniel didn't hesitate. Yes. And Lena knew, in that moment, they were going to be just fine.